Ever bitten off slightly more than you can chew? That's kind of how we can refer to this DVR. Hi, welcome, come on in. My name is Aoife and today I am wrapping up all of the books that I wanted to read in spring. There are 6 books that I put on this list. Every single season I put 6 books on that I want to concentrate on, whether it's because the authors work for the season, it's a series that I want to continue, it's a book that just feels seasonal and feels right. And then after the 3 months are over, we take a look at how it went. Spring is a lot of Irish authors, it's a lot of bright pastel books. There was another thriller in there, but mostly it's very happy, very upbeat, very cozy books. We should start with the books that I did not get to at all, and one of them was Binding 13 by Chloe Walsh. Now, I had intentions for this. I wanted to read this throughout the entire process of the Six Nations tournament. The Six Nations tournament is a rugby tournament that takes place in Europe kind of last weekend of January, start of February until mid-March. And I wanted to take that kind of 5-6 week stint to read all of this book over and kind of really immerse myself into a world of rugby. And then I didn't. The size of this was just super intimidating. It's way bigger than any book I think I've ever put together. So let's see how I go with it if I do continue to pick it up in the future. I'm not sure if it's going to be any kind of time soon, but I am going to give it a try. I also didn't get to the aforementioned thriller, and that was Famous Last Words by Gillian McAllister. Now, the concept of this was so intriguing to me. It was about a hostage situation, but it was told from the point of view of the wife of the hostage keeper. And I was so intrigued by the concept of this, but then never reached for it. That's not necessarily true. I had got copies of it on hold from different libraries, and there just never was anything coming up free. So I think it was also a point that I just couldn't get my hands on it. But because the concept of it does sound so interesting, it is definitely one that I'm going to try and look out for in the future. Going next to one that I tried and then DNF'd, and that was Moving On by Roisin Meany. I really tried with this one. It's about Ellen, who moves from her small little hometown to Galway, moves in with her aunt, works in a bookshop, kind of gets to know the staff a little bit too well, one might say. And then when things start to go south here, she moves over to London. But there was nothing really that drove me into this book. I really didn't like Ellen's friend Claire. I felt like she was a user, she was an abuser, and she really only had her own best interests at heart. She had nothing that she really wanted to do with Ellen. So I really didn't warm to her as a character, but I also felt like the writing was just a little bit too slow. I felt like I was waiting and waiting and waiting for something to happen, and then it never did. That train just never arrived. And I needed to be kept interested, but there was just nothing keeping me in. On then to the books that I did read, and first one was The Snag List by Sophie White. I really enjoyed Sophie's other book, My Hot Friend, and the two of them actually had a kind of a similar premise. Both of those books are about 3 women who live different lives, but they have all come together under similar circumstances. In My Hot Friend, it was because all of these women were in their 30s and they were looking for a new friendship group to form. Whereas in The Snag List, it is about 3 women who have bought a house in the same housing estate, and they all have to kind of live through this kind of Stepford Wivesian situation where everything has to be perfect all the time. People can't even separate from one another because it is ruining the image that Monterey Valley has tried to build for itself. The 3 women in this book are Lindy, Ro, and Alva, and all of them have super different lives, personalities, backstories, and struggles that they're going through. Lindy's 11-year-old son Max is the star of Maxed Out, which is a kind of a toy review YouTube channel that has exploded in popularity. Especially during the pandemic when everybody was at home, they were kind of looking for ways to keep their kids entertained. So they would turn to YouTube and they would specifically turn to Maxed Out. But now that Max is 11 years old and he's starting to become a little bit more familiar with how the algorithm works, with comments, with people's thoughts about him, Lindy's starting to get worried about the impact that this is having on his life outside of YouTube. And she really wants to start, if not pulling the plug, pulling back a little bit from it. However, Lindy's husband Adam is absolutely of the opposite mindset. He really wants to keep the channel going for as long as possible and maybe bring it into different directions, bring more people on, bring fewer people into the company. And there is a huge clash of personalities and of thought processes for the entire book. As for Alva, she and her husband Tom met a couple of months ago, and after a very steamy night out, they now have a daughter named Tilly who they're bringing up together When I say bringing up together, I don't necessarily mean physically. Tom is in the US quite a lot because he's working on a new phone app, and Alva feels like she's very much left alone with the baby. She's also a little bit worried because there might be questions about Tilly's parenthood. Around the same time that Tom and Alva met up with her best friend Shay, who she'd known for years and years, and they ended up in bed together. Because the timelines are crossing over so much, Alva's not entirely sure who's Tilly's father. As for Ro, she and her husband Eddie have been married for a couple of years, and people are starting to drop the "when are you having kids" question. Eddie is super ready for them to start having a family, and he has been looking for new houses that they can expand their living area. But Ro is not ready for this at all. And she is much more focused on her career as an actor and trying to bake it into the world of theatre than she is trying to find nappies and nannies. I thought all three of these women were written so compellingly, but there was never a time that any of them were my favourite character. There was never a time that I felt like I was rooting for this person specifically over this person, because each single one of them had something in them that I didn't stand by and that I didn't support them doing. Whether it was Alva's secrecy about her relationship with Shay to Tom, whether it was Ro not coming off the pill and not telling her husband about it and being super surprised and Pikachu face when she didn't get pregnant at the end of every month. I just felt like there was nothing about every single woman here that I was super supportive of. But that isn't to say that I didn't enjoy reading any of them. I found them all really compelling. I found some of their reasons for doing things, okay, a little bit questionable, but also interesting to read about. And when you get into their mindset and when you get into their psyche, sometimes it would make sense that this was the road that they were going down. I feel like all of the situations with this book, combined with the Monterey Valley, we need you to always look at your best, took a really great look at what the life of influencers is like, because all of the people who were living in the housing estate were doing this as a kind of a sponsorship thing, that you were coming into Monterey Valley and you were going to show it to all of your followers so that they could see what life was like in this absolute idyll. And then it turns out that behind closed doors, things aren't necessarily going as they might want them to go. I thought it was such an interesting look at what it is that we put out to the world and what life actually is like behind closed doors. I listened to the audiobook for some of this book and then I read some of it, but I had one gripe with the narrator, and that was that their accent, their voice, their inflection, their elocution was just a little bit off at times. It almost felt like they were trying too hard to read it. You know what it's like when somebody's trying to get every single syllable of every single word out, and they're trying to make their words sound too crisp, and they're trying to make it sound too natural and then make it sound not natural at all. I just didn't work with the narrator at all, and that's a big reason why I didn't spend the whole book with the audiobook. All of that to say, I did enjoy this book, and I am going to look at Sophie White's other contemporary books. She has got a couple of horror books that just aren't my cup of tea, so it's not something that I'm going to reach for, but I am definitely going to spend more time with her. Then I read First Time Caller by B.K. Barson, and I utterly adored this book. This is the first in a series where she's going to reimagine the stories of Nora Ephron as books, and this one is based on Sleepless in Seattle. This is one of the best rom-coms of all time, so I will not hear anything about that. This is following Aiden and Lucy. Aiden works for Heartstrings, a show on a radio station in Baltimore that isn't particularly doing well, but a lot of people have been calling in now and then to get some dating advice, to find out what other people think about their relationship, and to just have a bit of a sounding board. One night, Aiden gets a call from a young woman named Maya. Maya is 12 years old, and she's not calling in for herself, but more so on behalf of her mother, Lucy. Lucy hasn't been dating for a really long time, and Maya is starting to get a little bit worried about her mother. Maya decides that she is going to play matchmaker for her mother, call into Heartstrings, and see if there's somebody out there who wants to take her mom out for dinner, or to meet her for coffee, or to go for a walk together. And this explodes. Heartstrings hasn't seen numbers like this in such a long time, but Aiden and Lucy have got a plan. They're going to be coming in together to the show, they're going to give other people dating advice, and they're also going to send Lucy out on a couple of dates with people who have called in with great intentions to take Lucy out and wine and dine her. I absolutely loved the relationship between Lucy and Maya. You can tell just how close that they are as mother and daughter. But something else that I really loved is Lucy's relationship with Grayson, who is Maya's father. Grayson is married to his husband Mateo. They are living close by. I think their houses are right beside one another. And Lucy and Grayson describe themselves as platonic soulmates. They've known each other since they were teenagers. Maya was actually the product of their teenage relationship. And while it didn't work out for them romantically, they are still hugely involved in each other's lives and they have huge amounts of love and respect and support for one another. I absolutely loved seeing that family dynamic, and I thought it was a really great way to bring that forward into the 21st century. Some of the dates that Lucy goes on are, of course, duds. And I will admit that for quite a lot of the book, I thought that we were going to have a completely different source of the third act conflict. I thought that it was going to be a situation where Lucy had hit it off with one of the guys who called in, and they had gone out for dates, and that they had gone out and they were starting to get a little bit serious, and then that was when Aidan decided that he wanted to proclaim his feelings for her. That's not the road that this book went down, and I'm really glad that it didn't, because it just would have been a little bit too predictable. Instead, what happened felt a little bit more natural, and it did feel a little bit more out of left field in a way that I didn't expect it to happen. Another update that this book had from the movie from modern times is that Lucy is working in a very male-dominated area. Lucy is a car mechanic, and I absolutely loved the times that we were in Lucy's car shop and talking with the guys that she was working with and the customers that had come in, and seeing things that had happened when a woman is working in such a male-dominated field. I thought it was so well done. And you can tell that the guys would absolutely lay their lives down for her, and equally that she would lay her life down for any of them. Something else that I thought was really good was the little interjections of show transcripts or comments from people or callers in. This felt a little bit more When Harry Met Sally-esque. You know, the little idents that you have of couples who are telling you their life stories. I thought that this was a little bit of a great nod to the book that I believe is coming next up in the series, and I cannot wait to see what it's going to be. I have an inkling as to what couple it's going to be. Maybe there were a little bit of signs that I should have picked up on, but I have got a theory as to who we could see in the next book. I know there's going to be based on When Harry Met Sally. That's all I know about it so far, but I cannot wait to see when it comes out. Then the final book that I had put on my sights for spring was Before We Forget Kindness by Toshikatsu Kawaguchi. This is the 5th book of the Before the Coffee Gets Cold series, and it's the most recent book that has been translated into English, and I don't know if this is where I'm going to stop. Now, the stories were really good. There were a couple of them that really tugged at me, particularly the story, and I think it's the first in this book, about a young boy whose parents get divorced and he wants to go back and show them his situation has changed a little bit and his reaction has changed a little bit, and he wants to go back and show them that he's going to be okay with it. And the reason that he can go back and do that is because this book is set in a cafe in Tokyo where people can sit in a specific chair at a specific time of day and travel through time. Whether they travel forward or backward is their decision, but there are a couple of rules and stipulations you need to follow. The person that you are traveling to see must have previously been to the cafe before so that they can be known within the cafe's environs. And there's a specific time limit. You need to return to the present before the coffee that you have been poured out gets cold. It's about 10 minutes or so, which doesn't feel like a whole lot of time. Now, if you've forgotten those rules, do not worry, because they will be repeated to you about 20 times throughout this book. And that's where I think Toshikatsu Kawaguchi is losing me, because you have to be told it so many times. If you're reading the 5th book in the series, it's very likely you've read the other 4 previously. And I just don't think that we need that much of spoon-fed information anymore. I think we've gotten to a point of the series where it can be understood that we know what's happening. But also, there was a lot of other repetition in this book. There's a lot of repeating of the rules. Yes. There's a lot of repeating of what happens when you get to the cafe. Yes. There's a lot of repetition that the cafe owner's wife passed away shortly after their baby daughter was born, so she never really got to see her. She never got to spend time with her and watch her grow up. It just got a little bit too repetitive. And I remember reading it for maybe the 3rd time in this book and thinking, I don't need to read this again. I don't need to hear this another time. And if it's going to be the exact same in the 6th book that's coming out, I don't know if that's a story I need to read. Those are the books that I had set my sights on for spring this year, and that's how I did with them. Are there any of those books that you have already read, or what is the best book that you read over the last 3 months? If you'd love to leave me a comment, but you can't think of anything you'd like to say, then just make the groundbreaking decision of leaving a floral comment for spring. Don't forget to like and subscribe because I have new videos up every week. Now, get on out of here.